I'm so delighted to be with you. You know, I started off my career in copywriting when I was 21 years old, so I've always had a love for copywriting, a love for advertising, and I so much love and respect you for all the work that you've done to become excellent in this area. I mean, you're the best. You're the best. I was 21 years old. I did not graduate from high school. I started so far behind I thought I was first. I was working at laboring jobs for several years, and then I saw an ad in the paper. It said, copywriter requires, a beautiful ad. Copywriter required a person who can make words express and flow and motivate and excite people and everything else. I thought, that'd be a great field to get into. So I went and applied to this little advertising agency for a job as a copywriter. And they, gentleman, I still remember, very nice guy, very bright, very smart, very articulate, well-educated, well-spoken. But I didn't even know what a copywriter was. I thought a copywriter was a person who created ads and pictures and all kinds of things. I had no idea, but he was very patient with me. And he said, why do you want to become a copywriter? Have you thought of something else? Because you really don't know anything about the field. And I was kind of put off. I was selling door to door at that time. So I said, thank you very much. I appreciate it. He was very gentle with me and so on. So I went down to the library and I got a book on copywriting. And I began to read the book on copywriting. I finally understood what copywriting was, which is something that we eventually get to. And so I read, and I looked at different copy, then I read another book, and I read another book, and I began just literally totally immersed myself in studying copy, and studying the best advertisements of all time, and the way that they were written, and the various emotional appeals, and so on. And so once I figured I had a sense for it, this in the city that I was working in, this agency that I'd applied to is like number 10. Okay, I also found out the rankings of various agencies. So then I went to agency number 9, and I applied for a job as a copywriter. And this time they listened, and I had written a couple of things, taken a couple of ads from the paper and rewritten them and so on. They thanked me very much, and they said that really was not what they were looking for. And I said, well, why not? They said, well, it's because of this and because of that and so on. So I said, thank you very much. I went back and I kept reading and writing, and after another month I went to the 8th largest agency. And I worked my way up the food chain. I got rejected, but each time the rejections were less. Each time they were, if we had an opening, we would hire you. Finally, I got to the 2nd largest agency in the country, and they hired me as a junior copywriter. Because by that time I was ready, and the day before, the person who had the job was quitting, and so the day before I was ready to start as a copywriter with this major agency, I got a call saying, we're sorry, the other person decided to stay. And so we have to cancel your job offer. But we've spoken to the head of the largest agency in the country and told them about how impressed we are with you, and they just happened to have an opening, so I was hired by the largest agency in the country as a junior copywriter. Yeah. And I pass that story on not just for myself, but I pass it on because there's a lot of persistence required in this business. I just spoke to a gentleman, I was in Taipei last week, and I spoke to a gentleman named Terry Chang. And they brought him over to meet with me for half an hour, a big mucky muck from out of the country. Terry Chang is an entrepreneurial phenomenon. He's the Jeff Bezos, if you know of Amazon.com, of Taiwan. And 11 years ago, he went back to Taiwan after getting a degree in the U.S. to start a business, and he decided to start what he calls books.com, which is the equivalent of Amazon.com in the Chinese book language, of which there are many thousands of books. And he had to start off, he said there were 6,000 publishers. He had to get them to give him the rights to sell their books. And they were all very proprietary. They didn't want to allow their books out of their control because they wouldn't make the same amount of profit. Well, he had to knock on doors and knock on doors and knock on doors. He had to go from one to another, year after year after year. He had to beg, borrow, steal. He had to sell off, hypothecate every single part of his business. He said he kept working and working and working. It took him 7 years before he finally got most of the major book publishers to allow him to carry his books. He said it took him 6 years of calling on the number 3 publisher before they finally said yes. They said no for 6 years. It was only in the 7th year they gave him the right to carry the books. After that, the others all got on board. He's now the 3rd largest bookseller in Taiwan, probably the 3rd largest bookseller in the Chinese language. Within a year, he'll be number 2. Within 3 years, he'll be number 1. He's been in the business 11 years now, hammering away. So sometimes people, surprisingly enough, will say no to you. the first couple of times, and you just have to realize that you just have to keep calling back. He said if he had quit after he had been told no a few hundred times, he said he'd never accomplished anything. Now he's got 200 people. He's a phenomenon. He's written up in all the newspapers. He's wealthy. He's got a beautiful home. He says his wife just hung in there the whole time because it was real slim going for a long time, but he just never quit. And every single time I talk to a successful person, I ask them, what's the secret to your success? You know what they tell you? Is I just don't quit. I won't quit. I wouldn't quit. I just kept on. I never quit. So I pass that on to you. If you want to boil down success to just one thing, it's not intelligence or education or great grades or wonderful things. It's just never quitting. So today I want to talk to you about pumping up your profits. And I know Denise has told me and Michael has told me that you're some of the smartest people in America. Is that true? So you can take a lot of good ideas in a short period of time. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to sort of be your profit pumping up buffet for today. So I'm going to give you a lot of ideas, and some will be relevant to you, and some will be not as relevant, but there will be a buffet. And you can pick whichever ones you think will help you to put on your plate to increase your profits. Because I believe that everybody here should be earning twice as much as they're earning today. As Joe said earlier, everybody here has the one concern: you don't ever want to have to worry about money again. Isn't that true? And the way that you don't worry about money is you have lots of it. See, I mean, in case you were wondering how you got to that, you have lots of it. And nobody worries about having too much. It's not a problem. It's having too little that is the problem. So I'll give you some ideas and your goal is to double your income. Just say, I want to double my income. I spoke to someone. Where are you? Christina, are you here? Are you here? Spoke to her. Yeah, there she is. Spoke to her at breakfast today, and when she started using my material, one of the concepts she told me, she came across this idea, is the amount you earn on the outside is largely determined by the way you think on the inside. So if you want to increase your income on the outside, increase the way you think about your income on the inside. So she did, and she doubled her income and doubled it again and doubled it again. She just kept raising her mental bar on the inside. And what happens is, like Joe will talk about the law of attraction, the secret is that you'll start to attract into your life people, opportunities, and ideas like today that will help you to achieve that financial goal. So whatever your best income has been up to now, set a goal to earn twice as much. Now, the rule in metaphysics, the rule in spirituality is be clear about your goal, but be flexible about the way of achieving it. Be flexible about the path that you follow. Be prepared to try lots of different paths. But be clear about your goal. Your goal is to double your income. Once you've doubled your income, then what's your goal? Double it again, of course. But you know, it's doubling your income the second time is much easier than doubling it the first time, and I'll tell you why. It's because now you know how. Now you know how. The great benefit that you get from increasing your income is you learn how to do it. And then you just do more and more of it and get better and better at it and get more and more results in shorter and shorter time. Well, we know today we're living in the very best time in all of human history. We're living in the very best country in the entire world. If you listen to the stuff in the politics today, it's I call this the silly season. The silly season is on, and we are beset by most ads are attack ads. 90% of ads are negative. People are saying, oh, America's in terrible shape, blah, 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 blah. But they're saying this for political reasons. The fact is our economy, since the tax cuts of 2003, has increased 30%. It went from a $10 trillion economy, which is 30% of the entire world, with 5% of the population, to a $13 trillion economy in 4 years. That is phenomenal. No one has ever seen growth like this in all of human history. The stock market is at the highest level it's ever been. Something like 20 million new people have entered the stock market, have entered the work market in the last 6 years, and we have a problem with 12 million illegals because we cannot find enough people to take all the jobs that are available. The level of home ownership is over 70%, the highest in any country in the history of man on earth. We have the highest standards of living ever dreamed of. We have more opportunities and possibilities than have ever been dreamed of before, and you are right here in the midst of this. Yet, with all of this, here's what we know, is that 20% of the people make 80% of the money. When I started off my career as a young man, somebody told me that, that 20% of people make 80% of the money. I said, really? He said, yes, that's a fact. And of course, it's the Pareto principle and so on. So I decided I want to be a member of the 20%. And I still remember that. I was about 23 years old. I said, well, if you can go down this road to the bottom 80% or that road to the top 20%, I think I'd like to be in the top 20%. So the next question I ask is, how do you get into the top 20%? And fortunately, Joe has written about this, and Herschel has written about this, and Michael Masterson has written about this. The answers have all been found. If you want to get into the top 20%, there's a very simple rule. Are you ready? Just do what people who are in the top 20% are doing. And do it over and over again until you get there as well. If I said to you, if you want to get from here to Miami Beach, a very simple way is just follow the same roads that anybody else would follow to get from here to Miami Beach, because jillions of people have already done it. The dumbest thing in the world is to try to make it up yourself. So that's what I will share with you. Now, there's an article in Fortune magazine that says the top 5% of Americans control 50% of American wealth. Actually, we used to say that 80% of the money in America is controlled by women. And they know how to get their hands on the other 20% in a pinch. Which turns out to be a true statement. But because women live much longer than men. It's very simple. And they automatically inherit what the men leave. So they wait long enough, they'll end up getting it all. Anyway, that's a separate subject. So here's the interesting discovery, is that everybody starts off at the bottom. I used to feel sorry for myself because I started off with nothing. I had no money. I lived in my car. Like Joe, I was homeless for a while. I lived in my car. I worked at laboring jobs. I slept on the ground. I never missed a meal, but I did postpone quite a few of them indefinitely. And once I lost 30 pounds just through careful eating. Or not eating. Anyway, and I used to feel sorry for myself because I started off with nothing, and then I realized that everybody starts off with nothing. Everybody starts off with little or nothing. And if anybody starts off with something, they blow it completely, as quickly as they can, get back to nothing. As a matter of fact, in America, whenever you make any money, the first thing people do, turn off your phone, is to blow it, as we get rid of the money. So Napoleon Hill, you know, there's a new book by Andrew Carnegie. Napoleon Hill was commissioned by Andrew Carnegie to interview 500 of the richest men in America, all self-made, all started with nothing within one generation. And so he spent 22 years interviewing these people, and he came up with 3 conclusions. Number one is they all had certain qualities and skills in common, especially skills with regard to their fields in common. Number 2 is no one started with these skills. Many of them were penniless immigrants. Many of them came from farms and poor families. No one started with any of these skills. And number 3, all the skills are learnable. Of course, you know that because of the American Writers and Artists Guild. You know that all skills are learnable. But this was an incredible breakthrough to me, is you can learn anything you need to learn to achieve any success that you want to achieve. And if hundreds of thousands and millions of people have already done it, then you can do it as well. And 80% of all self-made millionaires in America start off selling personal services. Did you know that? They start off selling their own services. They start off with nothing. They have no assets. So they sell their own services, and they get better and better at selling their services, and they increase their value more and more. They increase their income, and then they do intelligent things with the money. They don't blow it. You know. Remember, I saw this bumper sticker recently. It said, "Dear God, please send us one more boom. This time I promise not to piss it all away." You know, well, anybody knows what I'm talking about there. Anyway, so I began studying business and financial success, and I found a very interesting discovery is that businesses succeed for a specific reason, and they fail for a specific reason as well. So here's a question for you. How many people here work on straight commission? How many people here work on in sales or work on straight commission? Now that's a kind of a trick question, because the answer is we all work on straight commission. We're all in sales, and we all work on commission. We all work on getting a piece of the value that we create. The number one rule for becoming wealthy or financially successful in America or anywhere else is add value. Add value, create value, add value. And when we create and we add value, we get a piece for ourselves. And the more value we create, the bigger is the piece that we get. When Joe talks about earning $450,000 in one commercial, he's created value. People gave him money because he created value for them, and they gave it to him voluntarily, and they gave it to him gladly because of the value he created. So always remember, we are all on commission. We are all in sales. From the time you take your first job to the time you retire, you're the president of your own company, and you're in sales. You're the president of an entrepreneurial company with one employee, yourself, and you have one product to sell into a competitive market. What is it? Yourself, your own time. That's basically what everybody starts off with. Don't feel sorry for yourself. The only question is not where you are, but as we say, it doesn't matter where you're coming from. All that really matters is where you're going. And where you're going is limited only by your own imagination. So here's the second question. What's the highest paid work in America? Well, the highest paid work in America is thinking. And the wonderful thing is that you are knowledge workers. You are knowledge workers. So you're at the front of the line. Is that the highest paid work in America is thinking, because of what? And it's because of one of my favorite words, and you need to think of this word for the rest of your career. The word is the word consequences. is you can always tell the value of something by the consequences of doing it or not doing it. Now, you know this because you have invested an enormous amount of time and effort to develop your skills in copy, in advertising, internet marketing, and so on. You realize you're one of the 5%, the elite, that realizes the way that you improve your future is by getting more knowledge and skill in the present, investing the time and the hours and the money to learn the things, because the consequences of learning these critical skills and then getting better and better at them can be extraordinary. They can make all the difference between you having a wonderful life, living in a beautiful home, having money in the bank, retiring with a happy retirement for the rest of your life, or worrying about money all your life. So consequences are important. So thinking is the highest paid skill of all. And the quality of your thinking determines the quality of your life. If you want to improve the quality of your life, you improve the quality of your thinking. Well, Calvin Coolidge once made this famous statement, which you've heard of. He said, the business of America is business. What we do in business is, what do we do in America is we do business. And with regard to the geopolitical ramifications of this, every single administration from Washington all the way through to today has been focused on creating a world that is good for American business. Because a world that is good for American business creates opportunities and possibilities for the American people. And creating a world that is safe for American business, creating oil lines so we can have oil from wherever we have to have it, trading relationships, free trade agreements have all been aimed at improving the climate for American business. And when people say, oh, America's in the Middle East for oil, I'll tell you what, if we didn't have the oil that we are dependent on from the Middle East, what would happen to our economy? It would stop tomorrow. The economy would literally stop tomorrow. So we can be really happy that some of the smartest people in the world are doing everything possible to keep the shipping lanes open. So don't ever complain about that. People say we should put windfall taxes on the oil companies. Really? What if the oil companies stop producing oil? Do you know what you have to do to get a gallon of gas to your tank? It has to be brought out from 5,000 feet underground on the other side of the world. It has to be shipped by pipeline hundreds and thousands of miles to ships. The ships have to come all the way to the U.S. They have to go to refineries where they're refracted. They have to then be put through pipelines and then sent to cities and put into pump trucks and then taken to gas stations and put under the ground. And you still pay less for gasoline than you pay for a bottle of water. Can you imagine that? The question, you always have to ask the question, if the oil companies didn't do it, who would do it? And the answer is, thank God they're doing it. When you think about that, they have to invest billions and billions and billions of dollars so you can fill up your tank for less than you pay for a bottle of water. Isn't that interesting? I don't want to get into economics, but probably, you know what the problem with politics is? It's the word politics. It comes from the Greek. Poly means many, and tix means voracious bloodsuckers. He said, the purpose of a business, he said, is not to make a profit, it is to create and keep a customer. Profit is the result of creating and keeping a customer in a cost-effective way. That's yours and my job, is to create and keep customers in a cost-effective way. Create and keep clients in a cost-effective way. Now, there's only 7 ways that we can increase our profitability. And I want to give these to you briefly, and then I'll come back to them and we'll talk about them. Number 1 is you can increase the number of leads. You can increase the number of leads. In other words, the people who may be prospects for your services. By the way, what is the difference between marketing and selling? I know you're all experts in this, so I'm sorry to ask you such a dumb question, but what is the difference between marketing and selling? Right. The answer is that marketing generates leads. In other words, it tells people that the product or service is available and makes people interested in finding out more, and selling converts the leads into customers. That's the major difference. It's really important to understand that. The purpose of marketing is to make selling unnecessary, or as unnecessary as possible. Really good marketing will bring people in waving the money, ready to buy, tear the product or service out of the vendor's hands. But that doesn't happen that often. So number 1, the way you can increase your profits is increase the number of leads, because there's a rule that says the quantity of leads determines the quality of leads. In other words, the more leads you have, the more likely it is that you have leads that will convert. The second law is lead conversion, is to convert those leads. In other words, to have a specific method or process of selling that takes a person who is interested in using your services and takes them to the point where they buy your services. And I'll give you some ideas on that in a little while. Now, the third way to increase your profits is to increase the number of sales. Increase the number of clients that you have. Of course, that's obvious. How do you increase the number of clients you have? Is you have more leads coming in and you convert more of those to clients. And the fourth way you can increase your profits is you can increase the size. you can increase the size of each client, so that you're actually generating higher levels of revenues from each client. And sometimes the most successful companies will have only a few clients. I worked with one company that only had 6 clients. They picked the 6 companies that they wanted to work with. It took them 3 years to get those 6 clients. That's all they wanted, and they did millions of dollars worth of business. They didn't go after the rest of the market. They just picked 6. I worked with an advertising agency, did the same thing once. They looked at the 10 clients that they wanted. It took them something like 4 or 5 years to get 6 of those clients. And they were one of the most successful and profitable agencies in the business. So size of client is really important. Now, the 5th way that you can increase your profits is you can increase your profitability per client. Now, this is a really important area. And profitability means the amount of money that you earn relative to the amount of time and expense that you spend to get a client. In fact, many companies, by the way, make the mistake, many individuals and professionals are actually selling to clients where they're making little or no money. Sometimes they're losing money. And I'll explain that to you in just a second. And now the 4th way, or the 5th way, that you can increase your profitability, is, the 6th way. The 6th way is to get more resales, to get more repeat clients. And this is really important. And the number 7 is to get more referrals. So one of the things that you do on a regular basis is you give yourself a grade from 1 to 10. And you say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good am I at lead generation? By the way, the more knowledgeable you become with regard to this, the more valuable you become as an asset to a client. Because most clients do not understand these 7 steps. So they're working here and they're working there. And sometimes one small change in one of these steps can dramatically change the financial results of a business. One small change in the way you do this can dramatically affect your financial results as well. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how good are you at generating leads? And remember, your weakest key skill in business sets the height of your success in that area. Your weakest key skill sets the height. It's the ceiling. So you could be very good at lots of things. You could be fabulous at writing copy, as I'm sure most of you are. But if you're poor at generating leads, then you sit at home watching a lot of television. Does anybody know what I'm talking about here? Hello? So it's really important. So you could say, all right, but here's the wonderful thing about skills. All skills are what? All business skills are what? They're learnable, so that you can learn how to do it. That's one of the reasons we come here, is because if you're weak in a particular skill, there's people in this room and outside this room who are experts in that skill. They will show you ways to generate leads. I was doing about $1,200 a month on my internet business about 7 years ago when I decided to get serious about my internet business. And I began to study the internet. I began to study writing, copywriting, product offerings, free things, and so on and so forth. And I just read the stuff. It was all there. I mean, people are eager to share ideas on the internet, as Joe was earlier. Last month, we did $110,000 in sales on the internet, which is about $1.3 million a year. Now, that may not be impressive to Amazon.com, but it ain't bad. It ain't bad. Pays the bills. There's enough money in my internet business now. I could stop working, just operate my internet business out of my backyard. I mean, my back room. But my point is this: is that what I did is just learn, and all the stuff is learnable. All the skills are learnable. So you can learn how to generate leads. All right? Lead conversion is really important. That's the business of sales. The rule is that nothing takes place until somebody sells something to someone. And I'll talk about this a little bit later, because the better you can get at converting leads, the more money that you'll make and the more opportunity you'll have to work doing what you do well and what you like to do. The third area is to increase the number of clients, which of course is a function of numbers 1 and 2. Number 4 is to increase the size of each client. Sometimes when a client uses you, they will use you for a nickel, but they will have $1 worth of business for you. And what they'll do is they will give you a nickel to see how well you perform with that nickel. And sometimes it's worth your while to break your back, really working hard to make that client successful, to do the extra work, to go the extra mile. Because if you really satisfy this client, the client will give you much more work to do. And that leads us to increase the profitability of a client. The more time you invest in a client, the more you understand a client, the less time it takes you to understand how to write advertising. I've spent 8, 10, 15, 20 hours studying a client's business before writing advertising. But once you have mastered the essence of the business, you can write better and better copy and advertising with it. And the others, we say here, to get more repeat clients, which comes from the function of the others, and to get more referrals. And I'll talk about this a little bit later, because this is one of the most important things we do. So give yourself a grade on a scale of 1 to 10, how well are you doing? And wherever you're the weakest, that's what is determining your income today. But the good news is that all these skills are learnable. You can learn the skills you need to learn to achieve any goal that you want within your business. Many people think that all you can do is all you can do. Is that if you don't know, if you can't do it, it means that you don't have a flair for it. People say, "Oh, I'm not very good at prospecting, or I'm not very good at selling, or I'm not very good at using the telephone, or I'm not very good at making presentations." Well, get over it. These are learnable skills. Can anybody here, by the way, drive a car? Ride a bicycle? Use a keyboard? Operate a cell phone? If you can do something like this, which is a very high level of complexity, every one of those skills, you can learn any business skill. You can learn any business skill. So don't allow yourself to be held back because you're weak in a single business skill. It's a learnable skill. You're not very good at speaking? Well, you'll learn how. Every single person who is good at speaking today was one time terrified of it. They couldn't lead silent prayer in a phone booth, as they say. Now, there's a company in San Francisco called Maricon and Associates, and they did a write-up on them in Fortune magazine a few years ago, and they called them the Maricon Men. Take off on the movie. And what they do is they go into a company and they analyze the company, do a profit analysis of a company. And I want to give you this as a tool for you to think of. Remember, the more tools you have, the better that you can think with regard to your business. And what they do is they come out, and I designed this because from reading the article. But what they found is that every company has a series of products, services, activities, advertising, marketing, sales methods that are profitable and unprofitable. The first thing they do is they go into a multi-division company that has lots of products. And most products in multi-division companies, they lump together administrative expenses, overhead expenses, staff expenses, utility expenses, and so on. What they do is they go and they tease out and they work out the exact profitability of every product that the company sells. They took the exact sales volume, all the returns. They look the exact cost of advertising, cost of promotion, costs of production, cost of manufacturing, cost of shipping, cost of defects, cost of everything, to work out exactly the profitability of each product, or in your case, each service, or each client. And then they organize them on a scale. And they say, this is your number one, this is your number two, and there's always a scale, by the way, for whatever you do. If you do a series of things, there's a profitability that is attached to each one. And there's always a for number one, there's always a number two. There's always number one and number two. With regard to you and I, it's the number of hours that we have to put in to generate a certain amount of net revenue. The number of hours of travel, the number of hours of work, the number of hours of investment, and so on to generate a certain amount of net revenue. And then this is the profit. Then they find that a lot of the products that multi-divisional companies have are losing money. And so what they'll do is they'll show every single product of the company along a scale like this. And then they'll, by the way, when they do this presentation, they hand out barf bags to the senior executives because some of them throw up because they're finding they're putting all of their money. They've got this great product over here that sells like in huge quantities, and they're losing money every single time. And they can't understand why they're losing money. By the way, think of the words Ford, General Motors, Chrysler. That's where they are here. They're selling products where they're losing money. They're doing tens of billions of dollars worth of business and losing more money than you could even dream of ever even seeing in your lifetime. Imagine losing billions and billions of dollars a year on tens of billions of dollars in sales. What's going on? The answer is the costs of producing those products relative to what they actually end up with at the end of the day is so much lower. So one of the things you need to do, and by the way, this is very important as a tool if you want to be an advisor to your clients, is to help them understand what are their most profitable products. The worst use of time is for them to have you writing copy and doing advertising to sell more of a product that they're not making any money on. And many companies are not even aware of that until you help them to understand it. Whenever I show this to business people, it changes all their processes. They stop, they bring in their accountants and their controllers, they start to do call it forensic accounting. They go back and they look at every single product, and they're astonished to find that product, which has been sells like Old Man River, is what's maintaining this whole company, and they don't even pay attention to it. Whereas this product that they're spending all their time advertising and promoting is they're losing money every single time they sell one. So therefore, ask yourself, what are your most profitable services? What are the things that you do that are most profitable? What are your most profitable clients? What are your most profitable ways of marketing? Where do you get the highest level of response rate when you advertise, when you sell, when you visit, when you call on people, and so on? And then organize them like this. Now, if you go into a company like Ford, what happened with Ford is finally somebody stepped in with this. And you know what they did? They shut down 29 plants and laid off 74,000 people. Do you know what they did? They just canceled these. They said, we can no longer, these plants where are manufacturing products where we're losing money are dragging down the entire business. The business will drown if we don't get rid of these plants. And that's what General Motors is doing. Every large company eventually has to do this. They have to stop producing products and services where they're losing money. So in terms of profits, remember that net profit is the name of the game. That's what Baron de Rothschild said many years ago. Always focus on net profit. Not gross income, but the amount of money that you have left at the end of the day. What is your net profit? So really important. Okay, there are 4 keys, 4 thinking tools. Remember, you are knowledge workers, and the better you think, the better decisions you make. There's basically 4 keys to marketing strategy, and they've never changed. And if you're ever having problems in any form, in any area of marketing and sales, it's because of a problem in one of these 4 areas. And these are things that you think about. And by the way, these are things that you use to help your clients, because most clients have backed into their businesses and don't know these concepts. These concepts are very simple, but I've been astonished. I speak to Fortune 500 companies and they don't know about these concepts. Or, in many cases, they've stopped thinking about them. So number 1 is specialization. And specialization is the starting point of strategic marketing. Specialization means that you specialize rather than generalize. It means that you focus and concentrate. You hone in on your very best customers or your very best product and service. And there's 3 ways that you specialize. 1, you can specialize in a specific service. We could say a specific product or service. What many companies do is they find that the only way they can practice these is divide into divisions, where a particular division specializes in a specific product or service. You cannot be all things to all person. Or you can specialize in a particular industry. There are some people who specialize and all they do is work in a particular industry. But of course, the more you work in a particular industry, what happens? What happens? Come on. You get better and better and more knowledgeable in that industry. Some of the highest paid copywriters, people that get $50,000 for writing an advertising piece, I see them all the time, specialize in a specific industry. And people say, who's the best person in our industry? Well, it's this copywriter in New York, and they'll hire that copywriter and pay them anything because this copywriter has an intimate knowledge of the industry, and what he does is he adds on his specialized knowledge of that particular company and then creates copy that is worth a fortune. And here's the third, is a particular type of client. Particular type of client or customer or market. Like some people will say, I'm only going to work within the Florida area, or I'm only going to work within driving distance of my home. So they specialize in a market. I'm only going to work with this type of industry. They specialize in this industry. Because what the market pays for is expertise. They pay for you to be very, very good at what they do. There's nothing more effective, and I learned this, and Joe will tell you this, and Meryl will tell you this, and people in professional speaking. When you start off, a person calls up and says, can you speak on this subject? And you're trained to say, absolutely, I specialize in that area. And customers say, oh, really? Yes, that is my specialty. Customer service, selling, marketing, advertising, security concerns, data processing, whatever it is, that's my specialty. You know, we'll say anything to get a job when we're starting off. I know that doesn't apply to you, but so therefore, specialization is the key. Now, let me ask you this question: what is the one word in selling, in business, in marketing, in your profession that more determines your sales, your level of income, your repeat business, your referrals, the home you live in, your standard of living, your house, your home, your car, the schools your family goes to, and whether you end up wealthy, financially successful, and retired in a beautiful home on the hill? What's the one word that determines all that? Can you guess? Pardon? Who said that? Credibility. You've been here before. Son of a gun. You're absolutely right. It's the most important single word in business is credibility. It's credibility. Now, Meryl, I'm sorry, Meryl? The gentleman that... Herschel. Herschel had his word. Oh, are you here, Herschel? Yes. His word was verisimilitude. Did you see that? Verisimilitude. What is that? It's another word for credibility. Is the truthfulness of what you say. So credibility is everything. Is people buy or not buy because of your credibility? Credibility means that they believe that if you make a promise, you can keep it. If you say that you will do such a thing, that you will do it on time, on schedule, and it will work. There is nothing that is more important than your credibility. And here's the rule with regard to credibility. It is this: everything counts. Everything counts. Everything counts. Everything that you do or don't do, everything that you do or fail to do, everything is a plus or a minus. Everything counts with regard to credibility. And when you specialize in a particular area, and you've done your homework in a particular area, and you're knowledgeable in a particular area, your credibility goes up. Here's an important point. Have you ever spoken to a client that says, well, leave it with me, let me think it over, and they don't hire you? Have you ever had this happen? Say yes. Of course, it'll happen all the time. Now, when you meet a prospect for the first time in business, because of what Herschel was saying, what Joe has said, other people have said, is the client's level of fear is very high. Has anybody here ever made a buying mistake? Of course. You've put out good money and you did not get what you were promised. You did not get the product or service, or it didn't work, or you found it better or cheaper somewhere else, or you couldn't get it serviced, and you were disappointed and you wished you'd never done it at all. You had that experience? Say yes. Okay, so what happens is every single person in our commercial market, Herschel was saying the average person is confronted with 3,000 ads a day. It may be 4,000 or 5,000 if you're living in a big city. What it means is that each person has made buying mistakes, and so therefore when they meet you for the first time, their fear level is very high. Their fear of making a mistake, paying too much, getting the wrong thing, being out the money, being disappointed once again, being left at the altar, being not respected in the morning. And your credibility is very low. So everything that you do from the moment of the first contact with that, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, the first contact affects this balance. It changes the balance one way or another. It either raises your credibility or lowers it. Now, as your credibility goes up, the fear goes down. As your credibility gets higher and higher, the fear gets lower and lower. And until it finally reaches the point where your credibility is so high, the person books you and pays you exactly what you asked for and is happy with your services. And everything counts. Every single customer contact, everything you do or don't do, every bit of preparation that you put in before you see a client. One of the things I tell my sales audience is, I said, before you ever call on a corporate client, go to their website, download the whole website and read it from cover to cover and take notes. When you sit down with a client, you better know everything there is to know about that client that's publicly available. If you don't, then what you're doing is you're trying to con the client. And you know clients are very smart. Do you know how long it takes a client to know that you're not prepared? You know how long it takes? Within 30 seconds of their meeting, they know that you've done your homework or not. They know it instantly, and your credibility has either gone up or it's gone down. So one of the things I say to people, if you're going to call on a client who can use your services, go to the website, because every single client worthy of your services has a website. And what do people put on the front of their website? They put their best information. Their front page is their bragging page. Is this who we are, and this is what we do, and this is what we represent, and everything else. And when you walk in and say, boy, I'm impressed. I didn't realize you guys have been in business for 27 years. You have 233 people in 13 offices, and you're the number one vendor of this product or service in this market area. Then, geez, where did you find that out? I said, I went to your website. You went to my website. Yes, it's a great website. I was really fascinated. And, of course, you went to the University of Wisconsin, and you're married to a woman named Susan, and you've got 2 kids, and one of your kids plays soccer. Where did you get that? It's in your bio in the website. I mean, when you walk in prepared, people, wow, what happens to your credibility? It goes straight through the roof. It's, how soon can you start? How soon can you start? Are you with me so far? But if you walk in, now here's what the idiots used to do. They walk in and say, well, what do you guys do here anyway? What's your best-selling product? What's your best-selling? The rule is this. In order for you to be a highly profitable personal services business, is you never ask a question, the answer to which is available somewhere else. Because it just shows complete lack of professionalism. After that, your credibility is shot. You can't make a second, you don't have a second chance to make a good first impression. Are you with me so far? So it's really important. Okay, so that's the first one, specialization and credibility. Now the second principle in strategic marketing is my favorite of all, and it's differentiation. And differentiation says, and basically the rule is all sales, all marketing is differentiating your product or service from that of others. Now lead generation just says, here is a product or service that will do, or that will give you this benefit. Anybody interested, they raise their hand. That doesn't mean that they'll buy it from you. It just means that they're interested in that benefit. Okay, now, your job in everything that you do is to differentiate yourself from anybody else who offers a similar product or service. Because when the customer starts off, as far as the customer is concerned, you're all the same. They're all the same. It's almost like you're Tweedledum and Tweedledee. So everything you do is to differentiate, which means that you have to be aware of three critical things. Number one is you have to ask yourself, what is your area of excellence? What is your area of excellence? Now, your area of excellence is where you are better than 90% of your competitors. One area of excellence can be you specialize in a particular industry and you have proven, demonstrated experience in that industry. So you have to ask yourself, where are you excellent? And here are the two really important words. Where could you be excellent? Where could you be excellent? Where should you be excellent if you want to be a big success? Can you accomplish this area of excellence overnight? No. Sometimes it takes many years. According to Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, it takes 7 to 11 years for a company to go from good to great. It's when but they are on their way the whole time. So what is your area of excellence today? If someone were to say to you in a meeting, in what way are you excellent in your business? What way are you better than 90% of your competitors? What would your answer be? And you have to be absolutely crystal clear about your answer, and you have to build all your marketing around it. Number two, in terms of differentiating, number one, is what is called your area of superiority. Now, your area of superiority is where you are superior to your competitors. It is something that you do or that you offer that makes you superior, that makes you better than anybody else who's offering it. Now, your area of superiority can be something as simple as the fact that you have a great personality and that you like the client and the client likes you. Or you have a connection with family, friends, or something else. It can be just you, the person. Or, ideally, it is the services that you offer. Your area of superiority is that you have more in-depth service, you've done more, or experience, you've done more in-depth work in this particular product or service area than anybody else. Others generalize and you specialize. And then the third area, which Joe talked about and which Herschel talks about, is what is called your unique selling proposition. Now, since you are all wordsmiths and you understand words, what is the characteristic of unique that no other that makes it unique? What's the word I'm looking for? Not adverb, but adjective. What is the quality of the adjective unique that makes it separate from any other word? Any other adjective. What is it? It's one of a kind. That's very important. In other words, it cannot be uniquer or more unique or less unique or better or anything else. It is only unique. It only means one. So when you ask what is your unique selling proposition, it means what is it that you offer that nobody else offers. You are unique. There's no one else that has the same thing. It is one and only. And you always have to have a one and only. And sometimes your one and only can be that you invest far more hours on a client's account. Sometimes your one and only could be that you live closer to the client. Sometimes your one and only could be that you have specialized knowledge and experience in an industry that most people who write copy don't have in that industry. But you have to know what it is, and that becomes the organizing principle of all of your marketing. You focus on where you're excellent, where you're superior, where you're unique. And if you don't have them, then the next question is, what could they be? What should they be? What could they be? And here is what could it be? What should it be? And sometimes it's something that's very obvious, something that jumps out at you. But there's a rule. Remember Jack Welch's rule? If you don't have competitive advantage, don't compete. If you don't have a unique selling proposition, you can't compete. You can't go into a market and be a Me Too person unless you just basically want to worry about money for the rest of your life. So here's the third key to marketing strategy. And the third key is segmentation. And segmentation means that you look at your market and you ask yourself, who is your target market? Based on your area of specialization, based on your unique selling proposition, your area of superiority, who's your target market? Even ask yourself, who is your ideal customer? If you could have any customer at all, who would be the very best customer? Who is your perfect customer? Who would be the perfect client for you? Now, the way that you do this is you say, based on what I specialize in and what I'm really good at, who are the clients who most appreciate and will most readily pay for what it is that I do better than anybody else in my area of specialization? So the word is, where can you add the most value? Where can you add the most value? And this is the key to creating wealth, add the most value. Which customers most appreciate what you offer? If, for example, I had problems with my left hip for a long time. And my kids used to I thought it was a muscular thing, so I took yoga and stretching and everything else. And my kids used to joke, and I would be walking along like this because my kids would walk along behind me going, and I'd catch them at it, and pretty soon people were saying, "Are you all right? Are you all right? Are you all right?" And I was doing physical therapy or physical training and so on. Finally, the guy said to me, he said, "You know, it may not be muscular, it may be a joint. You should go and see a specialist, an orthopedic specialist." I said, "Who would you suggest?" Well, he had a contact with a doctor at Scripps Hospital in San Diego, who I learned later, his name was Dr. Cliff Caldwell. And this is the hip surgeon's hip surgeon. This is where doctors who have hip problems go, and they fly from all over the world. And so I got in to see him. It took me about a month to get in to see him. This guy is a genius. He's a genius. He's like Zorro with a sword. He's just like a magician. And so he came in, I do the x-rays, and I'm sitting there, he comes in, takes the x-rays, puts them up on the wall, says, "Yep, hip's gone." He said, "The other one's going too, but this one's gone already." He said, "So this is a completely optional exercise, or optional operation. You can have it now, you can have it later, you can have it whenever the pain gets too great." In other words, it doesn't matter to me because I found out he's busy for months, years in advance. So I finally had my hip replaced. And I had my hip replaced by him because he was the best. He was superior. And by the time I had my second hip replaced at last, 5 years later, the first operation was 3.5 hours. His technology had improved so well he could do it in an hour and 45 minutes. The difference was 1 week in the hospital recovering from the anesthesia and everything else. The second operation, 1 hour and 45 minutes, I walked out the next day. Walked out with a new hip. I mean, the guy's genius. Somebody said, "You know anything about Cliff Caldwell?" "Yes, best in the country in hip surgery." Or at least one of the best in the country in hip surgery. And people line up, pay him any amount. You never even ask the amount. You never even ask the price. They line up, "When can you do it? Please, can I get in?" They fly from all over the country just to be operated on by Cliff Caldwell. That's what we want people to do. When they think about advertising copy, when they think about what you specialize in, they want to say, "You're the one. You're the one." Okay? So segmentation is you must be clear. And there's a question, by the way. It's a wonderful question for networking. We talked about networking a little while ago. Is when you're networking, you're in a meeting, you're in your sessions at lunchtime and so on, one of the great questions if you're at a business meeting with people in different businesses is to say, "What would I have to know to recommend clients to you? What would I have to know about what you do to recommend clients to you? Who would be the perfect client for you?" I mean, ideally. I mean, so I can search my memory bank and see if I know anybody I could send to you. One of the most wonderful things you can do in networking is to send people business. If you send people business, you'll have friends for life. And not only that, because of the law of reciprocity, they'll do everything possible to reciprocate. But by the law of sowing and reaping, the more you give, the more you get. So anyway, my point is this, is if a person were to ask you, "What would I have to know about you and what you specialize in, your area of excellence, in order to recommend people to you?" then what would you answer? And you must have an answer. Say, "Oh, well, I write copy." No, I'm sorry. That's like quality and service in Herschel's presentation. No, not acceptable. Is I specialize because I do this in a precise way. I have this wonderful way of discovering the emotional hooks in a particular service and expressing that in a headline so that people call up and buy or at least respond in much higher levels than people who don't. So than my competition. And the fourth area is concentration. And concentration means that you focus. You focus on just those clients who could most benefit from what you sell. Whenever you say, who's your ideal client, people say, "Oh, everybody who needs advertising." No, that means you have no idea what you're doing. You have no idea. You shouldn't even be allowed out of the house because you're a danger to yourself and others. You have to specialize. You have to focus. You're not a machine gunner machine gunning the market. You pick your shots. You think through carefully who it is that you specialize with, who can most benefit from what you do, and you focus on getting to those people. And I'll tell you, this is really the key to success in the future. To concentrate, focus all of your time, focus all of your energy, focus all of your promotion on just those clients who can most benefit the most rapidly. For example, if you sell headache remedies, who are you looking for? Person who's got a headache. And when do they have a headache? When do they have a headache? Now. They got the headache now. There's a basic rule in advanced selling that says this, and we'll touch on this in a couple of minutes, but it says this, is people need to have, a good person needs to have a problem unsolved or they're not a client, or not a prospect, or they have to have a need, unsatisfied. They have them now. They have them now. They have them right now. In other words, you sell fire extinguishers and their hair is on fire. You know, this is a good prospect because they need what you're selling now. You're looking for people who need what you're selling now. So these are the three. First of all, specialize and determine your area of specialization. You cannot be good at everything. The very best copywriters and the highest paid are ones who specialize in specific areas and then become absolutely excellent in something that is of importance and value to your client. Number three is to determine your target market, your ideal customer, and then fourth is to concentrate on that market. Concentrate single-mindedly. Well, this brings us to the second part of pumping up your profits, and it's what I call the marketing mix. Now, you've all heard about the marketing mix, but let me just touch on it quickly. It has, in my model, it has 7 parts. In fact, I have a marketing mix like this. I'll give you the 7 parts. This is my model. We teach this in our advanced coaching programs. So we say the basic marketing mix has 4 parts. And first of all is the product or the service. And you always define your product or service in terms of what it does for your client. People don't say, if I were to say to you, what do you do for a living? If you say, I write copy, that's not a definition of your product or service. Because nobody cares what your product or service is. They only care what it does. So you always describe your product or service and the product or service of any of your clients in terms of what it does to improve the life or work of the prospective customer. Of all the products and services in the world, there's only one thing that customers buy. What is it? Solutions. That's a good point. What they need? The answer is improvement. Is all people buy is improvement. From the beginning of history, 6,000 years ago, from the first open markets, people buy an improvement. They believe that your product or service will help them improve their life or work or some way. They'll help them improve their business, improve their sales, improve their customer lead generation, and so on, as they seek improvement. They seek that your product or service will help them to do it better than they're currently doing it. Because if they do not see or perceive an improvement in their situation, they will not act. They will say, let me think about it, leave it with me, do a proposal for me, leave me some information, I'll get back to you next year. Have you heard any of these things before? It's because they don't perceive the improvement. So everything that we do in life is to improve people's life or work in a cost-effective way. And the improvement that they want from you more than anything else is greater lead generation. Is that true? If you're in advertising, it's greater response rates. What is it that all business people want to do? Can you guess? It's one thing. They want to sell more of their product or service. That's what they want to do because the business of America is business. And the purpose of a business is to create and keep a customer. And so therefore, that's the reason that they hire you. So you have to be clear about what the product does. And by the way, when you're writing copy, forget about all the details and brochures and everything else. It's helpful to know. But what you want to know is specifically what the product does to improve the life or work of the customer. And of all the things that the product does, what's the one thing that will elicit the greatest response the very fastest? Because if you can make that electrical connection, like an electrical arc, that'll cause the phone to ring. Some years ago, I was doing a seminar in Ada, Michigan, actually Grand Rapids. And I was doing it with a group of promoters, and they told me this interesting story because I spoke to the advertising guy who wrote the copy. Anyway, they'd been advertising and running ads on the radio. And so this gentleman, his name is Barry Lebov, L-E-B-O-V. And he has an agency in Grand Rapids called Lebov and Beyond. Isn't that cute? Cute name. Anyway, I was talking to him on the phone because he phoned me to ask me some questions. He had called up the promoters, and they had been running ads on the paper, and running ads on the radio, and they were telling me privately that they weren't getting much response. So then they got a phone call from this guy, and he said, how's the promotion going? I heard your ads on the paper. They said, oh, it's going really well. It's going great. We're really happy, expecting a lot of results later on, cumulative effect. Whenever the advertising is no good, people say, well, you need a cumulative effect. You need to run it more often. If it's not working, then do it harder. Anyway, he said, well, I have only one question for you. They said, yeah, what's that? He said, is your phone ringing? And there was a silence. And they admitted, well, no, they're running all these ads, but the phone wasn't ringing. People were not registering for the seminar. He said, give me the account. He said, and I'll get your phone ringing or you won't have to pay me anything. And he went back, he called me up, he identified the critical benefits that people would get from attending this seminar. He put the advertising together in such a way that if you didn't attend, you'd be crazy, especially if your competition did. He ran these ads, and the seminar had about 100 people in it. After 6 weeks of advertising, within 2 weeks, it had more than 1,000 people. The phones rang off the hook. They had to bring in their children and their wives and their friends to answer the phones. The phones just went crazy because the advertisement was focused on the specific benefit, not the fact that a seminar is going to be offered, but what the seminar will do for you in your career. Are you with me so far? So it's really important to keep focused on what does it do? What does it do? Not what it is. And we work with our entrepreneurs all the time. We say, tell me about your business. And they always describe, I sell insurance. No, you don't. You sell security and peace of mind. No, but we sell the finest insurance packages, estate planning. No, you sell taking care of the most important people in your life if something accidentally were to happen to you. You don't sell a thing. You sell an experience. You sell a feeling. You sell how the person will feel as a result of using the product. Anyway, I'm getting off. I don't mean to duplicate what you already learned. So the second is the price. Now this is really important. It's one of the hand-biting, white-knuckle parts of any business is setting the price, establishing the price. And you can tell if your price is correct. How can you tell? The amount that you charge is correct. How can you tell? You're fully busy. You're fully booked. People are buying you at that price. When do you raise your prices? When you have too much business and you try to discourage business. The only time you raise your price is to discourage, or in other words, to limit the amount of business to the amount of business you can deliver. If you are overwhelmed, you've got work that takes you 7 days a week, it means you're not charging enough. So therefore, what you have to do is you have to constantly think about, am I charging the right price? Should I have an introductory price? Should I have a discount price? Should I have staggered prices? Should I have bundled prices? Should I break my services down into separate prices? And you know more about this than I do, but you have to keep revisiting the issue of price because people are very price sensitive, especially if they have no other basis of comparison. The third part of the marketing mix is what is called the place, is where do you sell? In what place do you make contact? Did you make contact on the internet? Do you make contact face-to-face, person-to-person? Do you make contact on the phone? Do you work out of your home? Do you work out of your office? And so on. Let me tell you a quick story, which I thought was cute. No, I'm sorry, I'll come back to this in a second. I'm getting ahead of myself. So the place is really important. Where are you going to work? Are you going to work in a certain geographical area? Are you going to go and see clients? Or the client's going to come to you? But the place is important. And what I would suggest, people say, well, I can work anywhere in the country. Well, that's true, but much of your work, at least initially, is going to require face-to-face contact with your customers. Very hard to do any kind of long-term work by telephone or by email. You've got to somehow make that chemical, that emotional connection with clients. And so I know many people who say, I'm only going to work within 50 miles of my home. I'm only going to work with people that I can work with face-to-face. Now, as it happens, there are 20,000 businesses in America per million population. So we have 300 million people in America now, or slightly more, times 20,000 is what's that? 12 million businesses? Actually, it's about 12 million businesses that actually report to the income tax department, which means they have staff. That means there's 12 million people. There's 20,000 businesses within a million people. In southern Florida, there's probably several 100,000 businesses that could be your clients. You don't have to travel all over the world to find clients. In fact, if you can't find clients here, traveling all over the world may not be a good idea. The fourth P is promotion. And promotion is how you sell, how you market, how you advertise, how you get the goods out of the woods. Now here's an interesting point. If you are selling your services to show people how to attract leads, is to market, to bring in people who are interested in buying, if you can't do it yourself, something's pretty wrong here. So we need to become really, really good at lead generation for ourselves, and we want to become really, really good at lead generation for our clients. Is that true? Say yes. So on a scale of 1 to 10, keep grading yourself. How good are you? How good is your product or service relative to your competitors? How good are your prices? Are your prices correct? And always be open to the possibility that you may be wrong. Are you selling in the right place, and do you have the right promotion? And of course, this is advertising, and this is sales, and this is follow-up, and there's all the different things that you do to actually translate a prospect into a customer. Now, the next P's are things that I've added on, and the first is called packaging. And this is where I wanted to talk about. Packaging is the look. Now, human beings are about 95% visual in their first impressions. Is what they see is what impacts them more than anything else. We say there's 22 times the nerves from the eye to the brain is from the ear to the brain. So what people see has 22 times the impact of what they hear. And what counts with regard to packaging? Everything counts. Everything counts. Every single part of your visual appearance counts. And I am so disappointed. I see people who are bright and smart and intelligent and well-educated and ambitious and desirous and so on and so forth, and they go in front of a client and they look like they fell off a watermelon truck and were beaten up before they came into the office. And they think, well, it's okay because I'm selling my intelligence and my creativity and everything else. But human beings are hit by your visual appearance like a wave. Wham! It hits them so hard that in 4 seconds they decide whether to use your services. Within 30 seconds they've finalized their opinion of you, and from then on they're just going through formalities. And I've worked with countless people, and by the way, I won't go into this because I can always tell the highest paid people in any room. You. I know exactly who they are because of the way they look. Why? It's because human beings make a lot of decisions based on superficialities, not based on your talent or skill. They don't even get that far. They just make a decision based on superficiality. So one of the things that I recommend that you do is go out and buy a book or two on Dress for Success in Business. There's some of the best books based on the best research on how to make the greatest and the best impression, the proper colors, the proper grooming, the proper everything that you can get, and with some modifications in your appearance, dramatically increase your perceived credibility, your verisimilitude. And it's really important that you do that because what counts? What counts? Everything counts. Everything counts because you're asking a person to give you money in exchange for what? You're asking a person to give you money in exchange for promises. You say, you give me, I'll give you some promises that this copy will be good and will work, or that my services will be good. And you give me some money that I can go and spend right now. I'd like some money up front. I'd like some money as we go along. In other words, you're asking a person to take a big risk. And people have been burnt over and over again. So your job is not to give them any reason not to believe you, trust you, to have to perceive you as credible. Are you with me so far? Really, really important. Okay. Oh, damn, I love this stuff. Okay. The next is positioning. And positioning is the way that you are thought about and described by your customers. The whole thing of positioning, Joe's an expert in this. You could talk about this all day long, positioning, because it's so important. It's basically how do people think about you and talk about you when you're not there? What is the way they think about you and talk about you, and especially how do they describe you to others? After you leave their office and they turn and say, who were you just with? Well, so-and-so. Well, what was it like? Well, what did they say? How are you positioned with your clients? And the other question is, how would you like to be positioned? And the critical thing that you're looking for is the words. And we could spend a lot of time on this, but basically you're looking just for the words. What are the words that you want people to use after they have spoken to you? When someone says, what is your name, sir? Larry. And what is your name? Carrie. So let us say Carrie asked me about you, and I know you, I've done business with you, I've worked with you. Tell me a little bit about Larry. What do you know about him? What would you want me to say? And if he was a prospective client, what would you want me to say? Does superb work? He's a great, super person to work with, does great work, he's punctual, his advertising really works, causes the phone to ring off. Is that what you want them to say? Now, if that's what you want people to say, then what do? You make sure that every single customer contact and every customer interaction builds that perception. Because perception is reality. Is what all top companies and all top professionals do is they're constantly aware of the perception that they're creating, and they work to shape the perception. They work to shape the perception so the person thinks of them as qualified, competent, positive, personable, excellent at what they do, easy to work with, and so on. It is so important. In my office, it's been my philosophy all my life, but we try to make it easy for customers to deal with us. Easy for our clients to deal with us. It's been my philosophy, and I teach that in selling, be easy to work with. Be really easy to work with. Be pleasant, be accommodating, be there on time, be punctual with your assignments, do your preparation. Be easy to work with. Make it easy for people to choose you rather than someone else. And so the very best compliment that I ever get is people say, working with your office is the easiest that we've done in the world market. I speak with people all over the world and they say, working with your office is so easy. You people are so good. They're so punctual. They're so pleasant. They're so polite. They get back to you immediately. And I think, I'll go back and I thank my staff, because that's the perception I want people to have. And it's amazing. I did 29 talks for IBM. And about halfway through this series of talks, which lasts for about 3 years, I said, I really appreciate your hiring me because it's wonderful. They pay well, wonderful group of people to work with. I said, well, why do you choose me? There's lots of great speakers out there. He said, you're the easiest person to deal with. He said, you're always accommodating, you're always on time, you're always prepared. Once we make an arrangement with you, we never have to think about it again. If you have any questions, your staff takes care of everything. Everything's always delivered on time. He said, it's just so we have to say, who are we going to get for this? Well, let's get Brian, because it's so easy to deal with. And I would like to think it was because I'm such a great talent, which we are. So positioning is important. Think about the words that you want people to use, and then make sure that everything that you do is consistent with the words that you want people to use to describe you. And the last has to do with the people. And remember, the people, yourself and the people in your business are 85% of your business. So as they say, good companies don't hire people and teach them to be nice, they hire nice people. And so it's important that every customer contact, every single customer contact, every single phone call, every single word, email is by someone who's pleasant, positive, enjoyable. Because as Herschel said, as Joe said, people are extremely emotional. And they respond in a positive way to positive people, cheerful people, friendly people, happy people, nice people, helpful people, and so on. And it's amazing. Some of the most talented people out there don't get a chance to use their talents because they're aggravating people. You know the old saying, when you first meet them, you don't like them, but after you get to know them, you hate their guts? They're like that. Okay, here's the last one, and then I've got a couple of things I have to show you, but it has to do with customer service, and this is really the importance. We say the purpose of a business is to create and keep a customer. So what is the critical determinant of creating and keeping customers? In other words, what is the sole aim and the central core aim of any business? And the answer is customer satisfaction. It's customer satisfaction. This is the sole aim. Customer satisfaction. And how do you measure customer satisfaction? This is the key measure of your success, and the answer is repeat business. Now, we could talk about this all day long, but as I said, I know you're some of the smartest people in the West, so you can take this quickly, but repeat business is the key. Repeat business is where customers tell you that you have satisfied them. Sometimes I say, what is the most important sale? In working with a client or a customer, what's the most important sale? And they'll say, the first sale. I say, no, because you can get the first sale by personality, by promises, by deception, by discounts. You can get the first sale in a variety of ways. The second sale is the most important. Why is that? Because the second sale is the customer's way of saying to you, you delivered on your promises. You did what you said you would do. Your product or service was the quality that you represented it to be when I made my first decision. So the second sale is the key. All success is dependent upon the second sale. All success is dependent upon the second sale. And so therefore, everything you do has to be aimed at the second sale. And this brings us to what I call the 4 levels of customer service to pumping up your profits. Number 1 is the first level, which used to be, by the way, the measure that people set as their standard, is to meet expectations. Hey, they would brag, we meet expectations. We meet customers' expectations X number of time, or 97% of the time. Today, because the competition is so fierce, meeting expectations merely enables you to survive one more customer. Survive to one more customer. Meeting is no longer enough to get ahead. It just keeps you. It's almost like a person treading water, keeps their nose just above the water. Just above the water level. You will never make any progress. You'll just survive. So the second level is to exceed expectations. And this is to do things that customers did not expect. It's just little things. Just to exceed expectations. And there's all kinds of ways that you can exceed expectations. Sometimes the store owner will take the person to the door and open the door and say, thank you for coming, as opposed to ringing it up at the cash register and waving goodbye. Sometimes they carry it out to the car for them. What is it that Walmart does that they're so famous for? Greeters. The only company in the world that does greeters. And everybody says, oh, look at those old Walmart people. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing? Biggest damn retail operation in the history of man on earth? Are you kidding? They know what they're doing. And so when people get older and they can't run around the stores, they just have them be greeters. And some of them just sit there and be greeters, say, welcome to Walmart, thanks for coming. Isn't that nice? I mean, it's a small thing, but it starts people off as they go shopping with kind of a happy glow. Somebody said, thank you for coming, which never happens anywhere else. So exceeding expectations. The baker's dozen, you buy a dozen rolls, the baker puts in an extra one, just gives you a little benefit, a little something extra. So always be looking for ways where you can do something a little bit extra. Now the third is to delight your customers. And you delight your customers, that goes beyond exceeding expectations. You delight your customers by doing something that causes them to light up, that really connects with them emotionally. Like IBM, you know what they used to do? When a salesman made a great sale, they'd send a bouquet of roses with a gift certificate to a first-class restaurant home to the wife. And wife got home, there'd be a bouquet of roses and a gift certificate to a first-class restaurant, say, your husband made a great sale this week, and we, the company, really appreciate you. What do you think impact that would have when you get home at night and your wife's sitting there with a dozen roses and a gift certificate to a great restaurant? I mean, would that kind of delight you? Would that make people motivated to go out there and kill for IBM? You bet your bippy. That's why IBM, by 1983, IBM had 80% of the world computer market. And just why? Because those people were so excited about selling for IBM, and customers were so excited about buying. I mean, they didn't even know why. But all right. Number four is you amaze your customers. You amaze your customers. And these areas of customer delight and customer amazement are areas that are basically based on your imagination. What can you do to amaze your customers? And it doesn't have to be a huge expense. It's something that connects with them emotionally. Sometimes it's a personal letter written in your own handwriting telling them what a pleasure it is to work with a person like you and how much you've learned from them and how much you've gained from your association with them. I mean, it's just something personal. Maybe it's a birthday card to their home. Maybe it's a present for one of their kids because they heard that one of their kids is doing something. Something that's not expensive. But you should always look at it, reinvesting about 5 or 10% of all of your revenues back into appreciating your clients, into delighting and amazing your clients. Put it back in, and my promise to you is it'll come back tenfold, 20-fold. So it's really important. Well, this brings us to the final point with regard to pumping up your profits. And we say in the final analysis, the key to business success is to get referrals. Is to get repeat sales and to get referrals. Now, my friend Fred Reichhold at Bain & Company has done about 50 years of research into customer service. And what he's come up with is a concept which he calls the ultimate question. And it's based on years and years of research. He's installed it now into many of the biggest companies in the world, and it transforms the business completely. And the ultimate question, he says, after you've taken every customer survey and every analysis and every poll and every telephone call and everything else, is summarized in the ultimate question. And the ultimate question is this, is would you refer us to others? Would you refer or recommend me to others? He said it can all be summarized in the answer to this question. And what he does in the book, and you don't need to read the book because I'll give you the essence of it right here, is he asks them on a scale of 1 to 10, how comfortable would you be referring me to other people based on the way that I have taken care of you? And Joe was asking that 1 to 10 question a little bit earlier too with regard to speaking. So you have to ask this question. If you were to ask your clients, and most people don't want to know, if you were to ask your clients on a scale of 1 to 10, based on the way that I have worked with you, would you recommend me to others? Would you recommend? Because the very best business you'll ever get will be referral business. When you walk in with referral business, you piggyback in on the what of the person who sent you? The credibility. You walk in with all the credibility. You don't have to make proposals and make sales and talk and come back for week after week or month after month. They say, this is my person. You should use them. They walk in and they say, when can you start? Referrals, by the way, are 15 times easier to get than cold calls. They take 1/15 of the energy. 1/15 of the time and energy to make a sale to a referral, a positive referral, than to a cold call. So the critical organizing question for you for the rest of your career, and this is where everything that we do, product, place, promotion, packaging, positioning, people, specialize, differentiate, segment, concentrate, everything in business comes down to this essential question. Is, based on your experience with me, would you recommend me to others? On a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel? And what they found in their years of surveys is that people who rate you 9 or 10 on this scale of 1 to 10 will be responsible for 85% of your future business. And that you could basically get rich by making sure that everything you do happens in such a way that people say, yes, I would willingly recommend you to others. I will take you to others. I will bring you to my friends. I will set up a lunch. I mean, people who are happy with your services will open every door for you, will assure that you sell more and more, better and better, higher and higher, at higher and higher prices, and that you eventually become rich. Is that a good goal? Say yes. Okay. So always ask this question. Have the courage to ask this question. And if they give you a grade anywhere below 9 or 10, then ask them, what would I have to do to get a 9 or 10 grade from you? And the most amazing thing is this. They say, well, if you just did this or did that or more of this or less of that, and you do it, you know what happens? Is they will then grade you at a 9 or a 10, and they'll open every door for you. They say customers will do a transformation if you ask them how you can improve, and then they tell you, and then you do it, and you tell them I did it. Because they will then say, aha, then they'll open doors for you. So very powerful. Is this a useful principle? Say yes. Okay. Now, I brought a couple of audio programs here. You, as I said before, you are the 5% who understand the importance of continuous learning with regard to success. The people who are continuously learning have an edge over the people who aren't, just like the athletes who are in continuous training have an edge over the people who aren't, and of course that's why you're here. So what I've done is I brought some of my programs here, and we have a special offer today. They're all free. It's an IWA type of free. I'll explain what I mean in just a second. The first of these programs is called The Psychology of Achievement. The Psychology of Achievement is my best-selling audio program in the world. It's now in 23 languages in 38 countries. It's sold millions of sets. And what it does is it shows you how to transform your thinking from the inside out. It shows you how to raise your self-esteem and self-confidence, how to set goals in every part of your life, how to unlock your subconscious and superconscious mind. It explains the law of attraction in detail. It explains how to get along wonderfully with other people, how to release your subconscious brakes, which hold us back, and how to manage any kind of stress or problem. It shows you how to program your mind for success in 21 different ways. Does anybody listen to Psychology of Achievement, by the way? Is it a good program? Some people say it's the best program ever recorded in the audio medium, and who am I to argue? And so it comes like this. They all come like this, so they're very easy to carry, easy to listen to. They even come with a little guide in the back here so that you can actually go from session to session like you would go from song to song on a CD. It's beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. Now this is called the Universal Laws of Success and Achievement. This is a phenomenal program. It's got something like 153 laws that have been pulled out over the entire history of man, philosophy, religion, metaphysics, history, and so on. And they're the laws of life, the laws of success, the laws of achievement, the laws of relationships, the laws of health, the laws of time, the laws of leadership, the laws of entrepreneurship, the laws of money, the laws of good fortune. It's a phenomenal program. The Universal Laws of Success and Achievement. And they just only recently brought it out on CD because it was actually an 8 cassette, about 90 minutes per cassette. So they now put it, so it's an 8 CD package, and it's free as well. Wonderful program. Damn. Okay, this is called Thinking Big. This is based on our discovery that the bigger that you think about yourself and your potential, the more you accomplish in life. And so Thinking Big shows you how to dramatically increase the way that you think about how much you can earn, the person that you are. It shows you how to set definite goals in each part of life. It shows you specialized methods of organizing your thinking. It shows you how to dramatically expand your possibilities for yourself. It's a wonderful program. It's one of the best-selling, The Keys to Personal Power and Maximum Performance. This is called The Psychology of Success. This is based on the 10 proven principles of success used by all top people worldwide throughout history, including the principle of purpose, the principle of excellence, the principle of creativity, the principle of responsibility, the principle of courage, the principle of persistence, the principle of continuous learning, and so on. It shows you the psychology of success and the psychology of failure, and then the 10 principles that all top people use. It's based on this concept that if you change your thinking, you change your life. If you change the way you think about yourself, if you start to think like the most successful people, you start to get results out of all proportion to the efforts that you put in. And that's free as well. This is called the Luck Factor. This is an extraordinary program that says that success is not based on luck, it's based on probabilities. And we call it the luck factor, but it's really the probability factor. We say that if you do certain things in a certain way in each area of your life, you dramatically increase the probabilities that you'll be successful in that area. Simple as if you make more calls, you'll generate more leads, which will lead to more sales, which will lead to more business. If you have more business, then the fulfilling of the business will cause you to become better and more competent and more capable, which will get you more recommendations and resales and referrals. Are you with me so far? So that what it basically says is your entire success is under your own control. It's not based on external factors, it's based on probabilities. And it's based on the probabilities in terms of time, money, health, relationships, business, entrepreneurship, personal development, and so on. It's a wonderful program. I was in England recently and doing a talk, and these two brothers came up to me and they said they were selling financial services. They were just basically in their mid-20s, making almost no money at all. They had one old car between them. He said today they make about $3 million pounds a year. They're the most successful financial advisors 10 years later. They said the turning point in their life was when they listened to the Luck Factor. They listened to this and they realized their entire life was under their control. And instead of feeling that they were victims because they came from poor families and they were starting off with no connections and everything else, they have just literally become phenomenons in their field. The last two I want to show you, this is called Master Strategies for Higher Achievement. These are a series of principles used by successful people in every critical area. There are strategies like the ones we've talked about in marketing and selling. There's zero-based thinking, which is drawing a line under your past and analyzing everything that you're doing based on the situation today. There's strategies with regard to, again, money, relationships, time management. They're the strategies used by the smartest people in every field. And the last one is called breaking the success barrier. And this is based on the 12 military principles of strategy applied to human life. What we did is we looked at, and I spent years and years studying great battles that were won and lost by the application or failure to apply a particular principle of military strategy, like the principle of the objective, the principle of the offensive, the principle of the mass, principle of maneuver, principle of intelligence, principle of simplicity, economy, and so on. And what I showed is that these principles apply to your work as well and to your personal life. And that all great leaders, all successful people apply these principles systematically, and as a result, they're in the top 20% or the top 10% or the top 5%. And again, it's based on the principle that when you think like the greatest leaders of history, the men and women who have accomplished the very most, you soon start to get the same results that they do. And that's free as well. They're all free. So what we say is that they're free in this sense, is that we give you a 100% return on investment guarantee. You can take the programs, you can listen to them, try them out, and if for any reason at all they don't more than pay for themselves and turn out to be free in your own estimate, then you can give them back and there's no charge. And sometimes we even say we'll give you a 10 times, and for you I'll give you 100%, I'll give you 1,000% guarantee. In other words, if you take the program and you don't get 10 times back the value, then you can send them back to us and there's no charge. And you've heard me say this in front of everybody. Now, this is an unconditional guarantee. That means you don't have to fill out a form or go to a notary or get a note from your mother. You just have to say, I didn't like it, and the guarantee lasts for 1 full year. So you can take the programs, you can look at them, listen to them, try them out for a year. They're the best-selling and most popular audio learning programs of their kind in the world in multiple languages. If after a year you don't like them, you can send them back. Is that a fair? Say yes. And I'm happy to say, I mean, if you're looking at me kind of skeptically, I'm happy to say that we get very few back. Of course, we move a lot. Just kidding. Just kidding. Now, there is a small deposit to answer your question, sir. We say that these programs, and by the way, I'm going to Australia on Saturday. In Australia, they sell them for $175 a piece, which even with a differential is about $140, $150. Now, are we going to charge you that kind of money? No. And they sell for $110, $120, $130. Are we going to charge you that kind of money? Say no. And $100, and $90, and $80. And the answer is no, 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 and there's Ginsu knives. Any one of these programs is only $75. Imagine changing your whole life, doubling your income for $75, guaranteed. Any 2 or 3 of these programs is only $70 each. Any 4 or 5 of these programs is only $65. And any 6 programs is only $348, which works out to, I think, is about $59 a piece. And at that price, unfortunately, we lose money on every one. But we try to make it up on the volume, that's right. So if you like the sounds of these programs, if you think they can be helpful to you, by all means, get them here, get them now. Last year, we ran out of stock completely, so if you're going to get them now. If you don't really want to double your income, it's okay. Leave them for the others who do. But you'll never get a better deal, and you'll never get a better price. So let me leave you with a quick story. This fellow was on his way to work one day, and he works for a large national office supply company in the headquarters downtown major city. And he's walking to work, and this beggar stops him, and he's looks like Jim from out of the movie Taxi, the series. And he's kind of grizzly and got a big little overcoat, and he's selling pencils. And he says, hey, you want to buy a pencil? You want to buy a pencil? He's telling me, you want to buy a pencil? You want to buy a pencil? You want to buy a pencil? And people say, no, no. Some people buy a pencil and pay him 25, 50 cents. And the guy says, no, I don't need a pencil. I run a major office supply company. Goes off to work. Next day he's coming to work, parks his car, he walks on. There he is, out there again, on the street, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. Want to buy a pencil? 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 And he says, no, I don't need a pencil. Goes back, third day, Wednesday, comes. There's that guy out there. He goes back, he says, no, I'm not in it. He goes back to his office and he starts thinking. He says, look at that guy. He's all beat to heck and grizzled and everything else, but he's out there every day. He's calling on clients. He's asking for the order. He's offering his services. He's doing all the things we teach our salespeople to do. Think what you could do with a guy like that. You could take them in. You could put him through a complete Brian Tracy sales training program. You could dress him up. You could give him accounts. You you could simply take that person off the street and make something of it. So he starts to think, altruistically, and what a wonderful thing this would be. He says, if that guy's still there tomorrow morning, Thursday morning, I'm going to make him an offer. And he comes on, there he is. Want to buy a pencil? Want to buy a pencil? Hey, want to buy? Sir, ma'am, want to buy a pencil? Want to buy? Well, I said, no. He said, but I'd like to talk to you about a business proposition. He said, this is my busy time right now. He said, can you come back? And he said, sure, okay. What would be convenient? How about 10 o'clock? It slows down before the rush at lunch. And he says, okay, I'll come back at 10 o'clock. So he comes back at 10 o'clock, and there he's out there stopping people. The sidewalks are pretty empty. He said, remember me? He said, oh, yeah. I said, well, let me buy you a cup of coffee. He said, go to a nearby coffee shop, sit down. He said, look, this is what I've been thinking, is you've got talent and ability. You're willing to get out there. You're disciplined. You're up in the morning. Let us take you into our company. We sell office supplies. We can give you a series of accounts. We train you. You could make a life out of this. You could really do something with your life. And he said, well, geez, he said, that sounds really good. He said, how much could a guy make doing something like that? Oh, he said, well, $30,000, $40,000 a year. You could get up to $50,000, $60,000 a year after 5 or 6 years in the business. He said, that's very generous of you, sir. He said, but we've got a problem. He said, well, what's the problem? He says, well, I'm already making $100,000 a year. You want to buy a pencil? Never forget to ask for the business. Thank you very much. God bless you.